Marlayne Hardy. I'm the president of the Willow Tree Society here in Hants, Harbour, Newfoundland. And this is...
I'm Chris Hardy. I'm also on the board of the Willow Tree Society, and I happen to be the spouse of Marlayne. So welcome to the Willow Tree Cemetery. We'll give you a little bit of background on that.
Awesome. So we want to tell you a little bit about the cemetery and why it's really special. The cemetery is run by the Willow Tree Heritage Society in Hants Harbour, and there's a really interesting reason why we call it the Willow Tree. And you can see here in the cemetery that we have willow trees. So back in 1835, the residents of Capelin Cove in December noticed that there was packages floating into the cove, and they realized that there had been a shipwreck. And so the Fanny was a sloop at that time and had shipwrecked against the rocks below the cliffs. And when they looked into it, they realized that there were bodies of the men who had perished in the cliffs, and they couldn't access it by boat. So Richard Pelly gathered the community, and they really risked their lives and went above and beyond. They lowered Richard Pelly down over the cliffs, and he was able to rescue those 7 men, the bodies. And then those men were buried here in the Willow Tree Cemetery. And what happened then was that Hants Harbour residents, they built 7 fires on the cliffs in Hants Harbour, and Trinity is where the Fanny was from. So Trinity is right across the bay from Hants Harbour, and the 7 fires indicated the 7 lives that were lost, and Trinity acknowledged with a fire of its own that they received the message. So then what happened in the spring of 1837, the widow of one of the people on the boat that perished sent over a willow tree slip, which was planted here in the cemetery, and now we have several willow trees that are beautiful, and that's how we got our name as the Heritage Society. So come on over and I'll show you the plaque.
It's grown a lot since the slip, as you can see. So it's you don't necessarily see a lot of willow trees around too. So it's definitely something that was brought in to this area. As you look, there's no other willow trees around. So
the plaque here tells the story of the Fanny and how the community really rallied together and where we got the willow trees. And then the Willow Tree Society also were able to put together this plaque, a bronze plaque, to really honor the shipwreck and honor those lives that were lost.
yeah, so it really provides a nice connection. I mean, they didn't have cell phones back then, or Starlink or internet, so they had to deal with fires on a shore. And this is an exceptionally beautiful day today here in Hants Harbour, and your camera's not going to do it justice, but over the rooftops there's a bay, and the shore on the other side, that's the other side of Trinity Bay where the Fanny was from. And Trinity Bay is one of the biggest, deepest bays in all of Newfoundland. So it is while it looks very tame and beautiful there now, in the winter of the late 18 or mid 1800s, it was a pretty foreboding place, and unfortunately, many lives were lost on the Fanny, all hands. But that's it's kind of it's interesting to me how they bring those connections of communication from years ago. So my family's probably the one that are from Hants Harbour. So I'm a Hardy, but my mother was a Pelly, and if you remember the story Marlayne was telling you, it was Richard Pelly, who I'm sure, if I go back generationally, was part of our family. If you ask me explicitly how we're related, I wouldn't be able to tell you, but I know there's some people here that are going to give me a hard time that I'm not going to tell you the right information. So yeah, that's a little bit of story about the cemetery.
Yeah.
I mean, this is an older cemetery, but there are several other cemeteries within the community that are further up away from the shore. So there's, a Methodist cemetery, but then when the Methodists and the Presbyterians came together, it became the United. So it evolved into the United Church cemeteries, and there's an old United Church cemetery, which is a baby considered to this one. But then there's the new United Church cemetery, where sort of the last generation is there, and there's probably hundreds in that one for sure. But yeah, the numbers here we probably don't have on the top of our tongue. But the thing is, if you come to the Willow Tree Museum, we've got lots of genealogy books there. we'd love for people to come through and thumb through and do some counting and investigating. That'd be wonderful.
Yeah, there is lots of information about the cemeteries at the museum. So we'd love for anyone to come by the museum and they can check and see if they have any roots here in Hants Harbour. It's a great way to look through and see maybe how you're connected to some folks who were here in Hants Harbour back in the day. The Willow Tree Society took over this cemetery in 1994, and at that time, that's when the Willow Tree Society started. And it was started by a group of women who decided they were going to recycle to raise some funds to do this. So they have recycled over the years, and there's still a few of the women that are still involved in the Heritage Society, and they have raised almost $45,000 over a 30-year period just by recycling. So they've done an immensely remarkable job of really creating a way to sustain our heritage and tell the stories for generations to come.
And this might be a bit of fun here too, because we'll do a bit of calling across the way here. We have the resident expert just here hanging up clothes behind us, so I'll call out in a minute. But this is Marlayne, you have the statistics on
Yes,
Catherine.
so this is Catherine 80, and she was the original, the very oldest resident of the cemetery. So, and if we look behind, Aunt Fran, say hello. Aunt Fran is one of the original recycling ladies, and she's still recycling to this day and helping us raise money for the Willow Tree Society. She is incredible.
Yep, she probably gets some answers for us as well to validate our. That's part of the challenge with this is that, you know, in terms of having records and availability, we really rely on the stories of the elder people within the community, and as time passes, we don't have as many of them around to save those stories. So it's really important to capture them, and you know, it's very interesting to learn as well. So we have lots of people that love to contribute, and it's very interesting to hear those stories. So we just gotta come up with the best questions we can and make sure we capture all the details. So when you ask questions, we have answers, or we have a good idea of what it's all about.
What is the population of Hants Harbour?
I would guess about, 300?
300 to 400, yeah, I think around there. Yeah, that would be worthwhile check. The nice thing, those are more. It is a community that is around the ocean, but as you drove into the community, it does extend on the highway a little bit, both sides. So there's a lot more people here than just around the main road. So. You do most.
So we're here at the Willow Tree registered fishing stage. It's called the Custard Head Fishing Premises, and this is a registered heritage site, and you can see that it's built on an angle, and I understand that that's to allow the fisher people to unload their fish both at low tide and high tide, and it's really an interesting place. We'll go inside and take a look in a minute, but what a beautiful day to be here looking at the ocean.
Yeah, it's not always like this here. I was going to say, now we're back here a little bit. If you do look out in the bay here, we're right at the top of Trinity Bay. So the next stop there is Ireland, right? And it's a big, heavy North Atlantic Sea. And people always talk about the North Atlantic Sea with a lot of respect. And I am a recreational fisherman, so I do have an open boat. And we were out catching our quota of fish this morning. And it was quite beautiful.
Yes, I love to fish too.
And you have a recycle.
Yeah, so that's the other thing, Marlayne. Unless you want to talk about the dual purpose
So
of the
yes,
site.
the women that we spoke about who did all the recycling, and that's still how we fund a lot of the work that happens at the Willow Tree Heritage. This was one of their first sites that they used. Actually, they would organize all the recycling and collect. They would gather and do that together as a group. And so there's still a recycling bin where the folks from Hants Harbour can leave their recycling, and it still goes to support the work that happens. So come
Yeah,
on
so
in.
it actually goes to fund the upkeep of the building and the museum, which we'll see in a little bit.
Yeah.
And as we mentioned before, we'll go into the, oh, there's the plaque there, yeah.
So this is the plaque that denotes that this is an actual registered heritage structure. So Heritage NL does those registrations, and they're very helpful in helping us just support the work that we do. They're always around. In fact, they were here just this week and did a visit with us. So we always appreciate the help that they provide for us.
How many rooms does it have?
This room here, it's basically, you know, if I had to think about it from a 3-section area, this is the old stage. Now this area up here is more, you know, there's a wood stove, and they probably gather to mend nets and things like that in the wintertime. But the work area, the main area, I guess, will be down in the stage. And we always tell people watch their head as they come in. And again, it's absolutely gorgeous here today. It's not always like this, but we're gonna try and entice people to come and pretend it's like this all the time. But yeah, this is the stage. So this is where the trap skips would come, land their fish. We have an old-fashioned wheelbarrow here. They'd prong up the fish. We don't have the pitchfork here. I could go grab one. And they pitch it up out of the boat or put it on handbars. And then they clean the fish up over here. Marlayne, I don't know if you want to tell them a little bit about.
So yeah, this is the gutting table or the cleaning table where they would take and split the fish. And they used to have a hole at the bottom, in the floor of this stage below the table, and then they just drop what they weren't using right into the ocean, and Mother Nature would take care of that recycling. And this is a typical knife that they would have used to split the fish. And so
At home, who does the splitting at home?
So the funny thing is that splitting doesn't happen as much today, because they used to split it and then put it on salt, and then they'd have it on flakes. And the reason they did that is because they couldn't just go and put it in their deep freeze. So today, splitting is almost a lost art. So we fresh freeze it, and we have beautiful fresh fish that way. But years ago, they weren't so lucky. So the only thing that they could do was pile it up in layers and layers of salt. So that's the way they would do it.
And I love that this is here. This is a drying rack. You can see that they would they'd lay the salted fish out on the drying racks in the sun, and it would dry so that it would last for the winter for them.
Yeah, and they had other fisheries as well, right? So this is a lobster pot, which is a more traditional lobster pot. If you drive around the communities, you'll see them made of metal and different materials, and there's a lot of technology around them now to actually recover them. So years ago, if you lost your ropes, you'd lose your gear, but there's all kinds of new modern things that are taking advantage of there. And Hants Harbour was one of the first communities in Newfoundland to actually start processing crab, which is a very significant part of our fishing economy now, which is really nice. Yeah, so that's about the stage from that perspective.
In winter, what happens here?
Yeah, so in the winter time, that's the time when you would actually, all your gear, as I mentioned, this is, we have some old gear over here. Now this stuff here is pretty rough shape, but you can imagine if there was holes to be mended or new traps to be built, this is the time when they sit around and, knit and mend nets. So this is sort of preparing for the next season type of thing. So this is where they gather.
Who did this, the women or the men?
So the mending of the nets was almost always the men. Now that said, in terms of drying the fish and things like that, the women were really involved in that. So, this is a little tiny fish flake, but in some places they could be, massive. Like they could be hundreds of feet long, and people would lie it out. So people would have to go out and just like putting out their clothes, they would put out their fish to dry, and they'd have to turn it over. And that would be something. If during the day, if people were out fishing, the women would definitely help support, looking after the fish from that perspective. But in modern times, a lot of the women actually did play a big role in working in the fish plants here as well. So,
Yeah, for sure.
If they did them lower, maybe because of the wind?
it's
I don't know.
I'm not sure really why, but it does make it feel a little bit more historical somehow. You know, it's sort of.
But it's a good question.
It's, you know, there's no building code. I don't think when they built this thing together, right? It was sort of built. Maybe that's how long the sticks were.
You're welcome to have a look in here. This is set up. We call it kind of affectionately the parlor, but this is probably where they would have spent a lot of time mending nets and getting ready for the season. There are some interesting artifacts in here, and if people come to Hants Harbour, they can have a look at what we have in here: the stove and the killick, the homemade anchor that so many Newfoundlanders used.
And years ago, this is you know, that's how when the boats would come in, they would actually just prong the fish and throw them into the wheelbarrow or into something, and they carry them back. But of course, nowadays, you know, putting a prong through a fish damages and bruises the fish. So now, due to fish quality things, you know, this is very out of date and antiquated. No one ever does this now. So you want to protect the quality of the fish.
So this was a community thing here?
So just like you see here, like if we were standing here, if we look out here, different families would have different stages. So this was actually owned by a family and was donated to the Heritage Society.
Yeah, it was
and
donated by the Green family and the Francis family.
Yeah.
So it was donated in, I believe it was in the 1990s, to the Willow Tree Historical Society.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
if people come to Hants Harbour, they can visit lots of sites. There's lots of picnic tables around to come and have lunch and do some hikes. Our three main sites would be the fishing stage. We have a museum, and then as we saw, we have the cemetery as well. But there's lots of other interesting things that you can do and see around the harbour. There's hiking, there's all sorts of things.
The one thing, if you think about the story that we talked about, the namesake of the Heritage Society, which is the Willow Tree, which is the story of the wreck of the Fanny, usually we tell the story of Aunt Lydia, right? And I don't know, Marlayne, if you want to tell the story, I'll give you a mini view of the story.
Okay.
So years ago, you know, it looks very gorgeous and everything here, but the people talk about years ago how hard things were. And, you know, some years there was fish, some years there wasn't fish, or it was hard to get them. And one particular year, there was no fish. So the story goes that Aunt Lydia got everybody in the community to pray for fish. And there was one fella who basically, I don't know if he was necessarily a religious character, but he sort of ignored the prayer session. And after the prayer session was over, he was the only one out fishing. And when he came back in, the boat was full. So it was all
of our lore.
It was all thanks to Aunt Lydia's prayer. So this is a story we often associate or tell around the fishing stage when we have people come, because it's always interesting to have a story to go along with some of the history as well. Yeah.
People who live here, are they here all year round?
Yes, there is a community of folks who are here all year round. We're here mostly in the summertime, but we come back and forth in the winter. But there is quite a few people that do come in the summer. But there is a strong community of folks who do live here all year round.
Yeah, for sure.
You grew up here, right?
Well, I'm one of those people, if you talk to Newfoundlanders, they have a sense of place. And I definitely have this as a sense of place, but I did grow up in the city, but I spent every sort of second I could out in Hants Harbour. So I'm, as the lore goes again, you know, we sort of have people from the bay we called baymen, and people from the cities we call townies, right? So I'd like to be able to wear both hats. I probably like to wear my Hants Harbour hat a little bit more, but I can't deny the time I spent growing up in the city.
I'm also from St. John's, but we now have the house that Chris's mom grew up in is where we spend our summers. So we absolutely love it out here and spend as much time as we possibly can.
And why wouldn't you? Really? Come on,
pretty
look at this
idyllic.
place. It's great. It's gorgeous.
We were out fishing this morning for the food fishery. We hike. Sometimes when it's beautiful weather, we can kayak. Like, really, you can't ask for any better.
Anytime you're by the ocean is time well spent.
Chris, how would you say that the community evolved over the years?
I think there was, I can't really speak to the olden days because obviously it's very, I think the older story of Hants Harbour is the story of all communities within Hants Harbour, which was you had merchants that, bought the fish, and then people had to buy supplies to fish. And so it was very, European from that perspective, so a lot of that came across into that realm. But I think one of the big evolutions realistically was just over here we have a fish plant, and we call it the fish plant, but realistically it is a crab plant. And it was one of the first large-scale crab plants, and it was run by P. Janes and Sons. So they were pretty innovative in terms of getting this new species and getting it to market. And now it's become, a really strong source of, it's a great species. It's in demand. It's a great product. Delicious too, by the way, which is fantastic. And the other thing they did as well is that instead of just sending the raw goods off to foreign places, they actually did post-processing on it, so they would actually build end products. So they build a crab au gratin, so they wouldn't just sell the raw meat, although that does happen, but being able to do some of those processed products that go direct to customer versus intermediaries and then potentially even getting sold back to us at some point.
Yeah, the only thing I think we need to mention though is that it's no longer a crab processing plant. It's more used now as a distribution plant, and you can really see the impact that it has on the economics in the harbour and the industry and the busyness. So certainly I think it's safe to say that life in Hants Harbour has quieted, and there are folks that now go outside the harbour for employment that would have otherwise stayed in the harbour for employment. So things have changed, but I like to think that it's evolving a little bit, and part of that evolution is finding ways to bring people here to Hants Harbour and experience what we love about this place: the fishing, the hiking, the ATV, the trails through the woods. There's so many beautiful things to do that are just good for the soul and really connect not only with the outdoors but with each other in ways that I like to think about Richard Pelly and the folks that did all that they did. I mean, they really banded together and went above and beyond to help people that they didn't know and to send that message back to Trinity. And these days, with people being as lonely as they are, that connection and that community is even more important. So it's part of the message I feel that we're doing even here by creating and sustaining our own heritage.
You sound like a good eater. Do you cook?
You know something? I could say yes, but Marlayne is definitely the cook. We had some amazing, and we've had the opportunity to travel the world a little bit through our jobs and careers, which is very fortunate. So being able to bring some different recipes to our codfish and things like that. We have lots of interesting cod tacos. We had a macadamia encrusted, had some sort of orange. It was delicious, but you're going to have to look to Marlayne for the chef side of things.
We do look for lots of interesting ways to cook our cod, because we do catch cod and we want to make sure we're enjoying every bit, and it's so delicious, but interesting ways to cook it is always fun.
And we are visiting the museum.
Yes, so what we'll do now is we'll head over to the museum, and I'd love to show you all that's in there, and I encourage everybody to come and have a visit because it's super interesting. Let's head over there now.
Well, let's go.
We're here at the Willow Tree Museum. Come on in and I'll show you what we have inside. We have a gift shop where people can pop by, and we'll have to get you to sign our book later before you leave. I do want to stop and first of all talk about who we affectionately call the Bag Ladies. There was a Land and Sea episode done on them in 2016, and these are the amazing women that really started the Willow Tree Heritage Society and started the recycling program that funds them. And they really are remarkable in all the work that they've done to help us really sustain and communicate all about the heritage here in Hants Harbour. And Gertie Pelly, she passed away a couple of years ago, and it was really interesting. If you listen to the CBC documentary, she says it all started with 3 cents in a ditch, which is really like such a small little thing. 3 cents by looking at a recyclable and thinking, well, we can collect those recyclables, we can help the environment, and we can really sustain our heritage society. So these women used the recycling money to purchase this. It was a Salvation Army church. It went up for sale, and they thought it would be the perfect location for a museum. And that's where it all started, with these women and the recycling. 3 cents in a ditch. If you come over here, you'll see we have genealogy records, which are really interesting if you're from the area and want to learn a little bit about who came before you. So there's birth records, marriage records, and there's records from the cemeteries that are here in Hants Harbour. So we have lots of people that come and doing research on their genealogy. So if you come over, and this is...
You know these guys? Then we don't stop.
Okay, all right. Okay, so we're going to head over to the school and have a little peek in here. And actually, one of the first schools in Hants Harbour was called Broughton Hall. And have a look at the front. This is a model that was created by Gerald Soper, and he has painstakingly, he does each piece of clapboard separately. So he has done a few models for us, and Broughton Hall, you can see the photo on the wall of what it was originally. And his model even includes the stained glass windows above the door. I mean, it's just gorgeous. We also have another one here of the post office, the old post office. It really are great additions to our museum. And then just here, showing what a school might be. There'd be a potbelly stove where the students would have to bring wood or coal. They would have their own slates. Just a reminder of how much school has changed. There's no iPads back in the day.
Oh, hello again. Welcome to the kitchen. So I want to take a little step back in time. So this is where we're going to, always gathered around. The stove was the heart of everything, right? Number one was a source of heat, but it was also, the place where all the food and I love this one here, even the rock, they used to heat up a rock and put it in your bed so your feet wouldn't get cold at night, so there's no, I guess, central heating in houses back then. That was, the best version of it. In the kitchen here, we see lots of little artifacts, things from sewing machines to really old cutlery and plates and things. But one of the things I want to just sort of point out in here, great artifact, is this spinning wheel. Now the spinning wheel, again, you sort of think of it from a house and they'd card up wool and make all kinds of things with it. But the more interesting thing about this piece is that it actually came over on a vessel called the Great Eastern. Now the Great Eastern was the very first cable ship that connected Europe to North America. It's fascinating. So, while it's low-tech type of thing, it was on the vessel that was providing state-of-the-art tech. I mean, we have lots of great submarine fiber optic cables that we enjoy all of our internet messages that run through those, but this came across on that vessel. So kind of interesting when you think about a vessel, and I don't know the year on that, but there is a museum dedicated to the cable and the technology in Heart's Content, just 15 minutes up the road. So while you're visiting there or visiting here, make sure you check out both of those things. I'll bring you over to the shed too. This is sort of an evolution of when we talked about the stage, the place where they did work and mended their nets. This was probably much more about how they mended their tools, how they cut wood in the winter time. So lots of kinds of interesting things, lots of saws. We have some, homemade snowshoes here. And even things, like horses were used to pull wood in the winter time, so they keep all their gear like that. And, this is a great little place for people to come and ask questions for, what is this? And there's some gadgets, we don't even quite know what they're all for, but maybe someone does and they'd be happy to, but from cobbling shoes to sharpening axes. So this is a great spot to just sort of imagine what it would be like to build and make your own tools to sustain yourself.
I have a question about gardening. Were they doing any gardening here?
Yeah, absolutely. So the gardening was a big piece of it too. I spent a lot of time talking about woodworking and tools like that, but if you look straight down here, this is a till. So they would actually connect this up to the horse and they would till the ground and they would plant vegetables, which was, I always find it interesting because they call Newfoundland the rock. So there's not necessarily a lot of soil. So wherever they found soil and they cultivated that soil, they did get lots of vegetables and things like that. I want to introduce you to Cameron, who's our student this summer. So if you've come to the Willow Tree Museum, you're probably going to be met with this smiley, happy face. And Cameron, I don't know if you want to tell them a little bit about some of the fishing area.
Yeah, no, certainly, Chris. So this is probably one of my favorite areas of the whole museum, because not only does it have history about the fishing and all that sort of stuff in Newfoundland, but it also tells the story of how the Willow Tree Heritage Society got their name with the tale of the Willow Tree. This is a student-made project, and it talks about a ship called the Fanny that went aground, and the men here, shown in this model, retrieved the bodies of the 7 members who died on the ship accident, and they were planted in this cemetery here. So that's where we get our story of the willow tree, because somebody planted a willow tree in the cemetery. And and another thing I find interesting over here that we already talked about was the models. So this is a model of the old lighthouse from Hants Harbour. It was made by a man named Gerald Soper, and he did a wonderful job on these models. Like, the detail is extraordinary on these. And another story I like to hear about whenever I think of the fishing in this area is the fish plant. So not a lot of people know this. I only learned this from working here myself. The first ever crab plant to open in Newfoundland was built here in Hants Harbour, and while the plant is no longer here now, it definitely made an impact on all of Newfoundland, as the crab fishery is one of our main sources for our economy.
You seem very passionate about history.
Well, I'm here to learn.
We have a pretty interesting artifact in the museum that we like to highlight as well, and this is the life preserver from a vessel called the SS Caribou. And for Newfoundlanders or older Newfoundlanders, they remember this vessel really well. For folks that don't know, if they fly to Newfoundland, that's one thing, but the majority of the time people actually came via passenger ferry between North Sydney and Port aux Basques. And during the wartime was no different. And this vessel, back towards the end of the war, the Germans were basically trying to interrupt the supply chain, so there was a big presence here. And unfortunately, this vessel was targeted and sank very quickly. There was very few survivors, so there was hundreds of lives lost. But it is a real sort of testament to, I guess, the time and how it impacted people, because that was our road, and it was under attack during the war. And while the wars were being fought in Europe, it had a direct impact right here in Newfoundland, and indirectly because people on that vessel were from all kinds of communities. I think they even said that the funeral that they had in Port aux Basques, the procession was over 2 kilometers long. So, it was a really sad story, but kind of nice to have this piece of history here to remind us of those times. So yeah, this is the story of the Caribou.
When is it open? Every day?
So our museum is open from Wednesdays to Sundays at 10 to 5 every day.
thank you so much for visiting with us today. We'd love to see you here in Hants Harbour to check out the cemetery or our museum or the fishing stage. Thanks for being here, and we hope to see you soon.
Thanks.
Yeah, absolutely. A nice, beautiful place to walk around. So we'd love to see you. And if you see any of us, stop us and ask us questions. We'd be happy to answer what we can. And thanks for spending some time with us today.